Don't throw your jackhammer chatterbaits away if the barb rusts and breaks off. Now, for the first time ever, we are paying a premium for a bait that is a jig head attached to a blade that has a hook on it, obviously, that you cannot remove. We've been paying a lot of money for lures for a long time. Top waters, jerk baits, crankbaits, those all come to mind. But when the hooks went bad on those baits, you could take them off and put brand new hooks on it, and the bait was good as new. Not the case with this jackhammer. And if you see there, my barb has rusted and broken off. That hook still very sharp, very sticky, but everything else about the bait is pretty beat up, but still works fine. There shouldn't be any issues with it. Now again, this is a $17 lure, so is it just good for practice or fun fishing? Can I trust that whatever little smashed down piece of metal is where the barb used to be going to actually secure the fish during a tournament? And the answer is yes, because what we think a barb does, or what we've been taught our whole life on what a barb does, or what we just thought we assumed because, come on, that's what it looks like it does, doesn't actually do. So let me explain. A barb, Doug Hannon, the Bass Professor, is where I got this from. A barb does not keep the fish on the hook. It keeps the hook in the fish. Now, that just sounds like he's wording it, interchanging the wording a little bit. But really what he means by that, and Doug's no longer with us, a great mind of bass fishing history and insight, and will forever have what he's taught us. So thank you to Doug Hannon. But what he's trying to tell you is that when you stick a hook in a fish, you got to keep the point of that hook coming to that boat, or the fish is going to come off regardless if there's a barb or not a barb on there. The barb is just to try to secure the hook from moving around a lot. It's not necessarily going to trap that fish. And we all have had fish jump or shake their head or swim at the boat and come off because the barb doesn't really do what we think it does. It's not going to keep a fish on there. If you set the hook and just let the fish swim, eventually it's going to come off. The barb isn't going to save you from a fish spitting your lure. His other thing he said is that we don't necessarily get to or past the barb until the fish is halfway to the boat anyways, which is very intriguing because if you have a bigger barb on a hook, it's probably harder to get the fish past that. You're going to be somewhere in the middle for longer with a bigger barb. Another instance where I've seen this, and I kind of thought about it and didn't really understand what was happening underneath the water, but a guy by the name of Aaron Martins, who is another very impactful fisherman on the fishing world, no longer with us either. Anything this guy ever did when it came to hooks or fishing tournaments or lures or technology or whatever it may be was gold. He had the Midas touch when it came to fishing. He might be the greatest mind we've ever seen in the sport. He came out with a line of hooks. This was probably close to 10 years ago. It was under the umbrella of Gamakatsu, which it was a bunch of the same hooks that Gamakatsu already made, but he just put his little renditions on there. The one that I used was a split shot drop shot hook, and it had that silvery finish on the hook, which I really like. And the barbs were smaller. Same hook, just smaller barbs. The point, little things were different about the hook, but it was pretty much the same hook. This was a hook I used for drop shotting for a long time. And that was the first time I realized that, okay, the barb must not make as much of an impact as we think it does. So with using this bait with a smash down barb, I've caught just as many, if more, fish than I did with a barb. Now, I have a way of fighting fish, which is probably different than the way you fight fish. So this may not work for everybody the way it's worked for me, but I've really been intrigued by how this smaller, just kind of smashed down barb has worked really well. I'm all about changing baits, tinkering with baits, doing these little things that I always think are make no difference, but really can make a huge difference when we're talking about ounces. We're talking about one more bite every couple times you go. Those little things are what separates the guys that finish in 50th to the guys that always finish in the teens, or the guys that are constantly making top fives or having opportunities to win tournaments, and guys that are just fishing for the last check, it seems like. So those little tiny intricate details are the biggest impact on what kind of fisherman you are. If you have baits like this where they don't necessarily have a whole lot of barb left, don't throw them away. They can still work as good, if not better, than the original bait you bought. So try that, guys. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.